I believe that Syracuse football will have about 3 to 4 players that are drafted in the 2025 NFL Draft.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day, and guess what, guys? We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on this week's Poll Friday, I asked you guys the question, how many players for Syracuse football do you think are going to be drafted in the 2025 NFL Draft? There are a good number of players that have that opportunity this time around. In 2024, 0 Syracuse football players were drafted. And look, I said off the top, I think it's going to be 3 to 4. I will let you know right now, there will be at least one. And that's not saying a lot, but there will be at least one player that is drafted in 2025. And you can let me know right now in the comments section below how many players you think will be drafted from Syracuse in the 2025 NFL Draft. And by the way, just a quick disclaimer before we get to everything, I am talking about players that were on Syracuse in 2024. I don't want to hear about some transfer in 2021 that played for Syracuse that's now in the 2025 draft. I'm talking about we're on the roster in 2024 and will be drafted in 2025. Sound good, everyone? All right, cool. Let's get to it. So for context, the most amount of players that Syracuse has ever had drafted in the NFL is 7, and it's happened twice in Syracuse history. It happened in 1953 and 1961. I think it is very unlikely that Syracuse has 7 or more players drafted in the NFL this year, but I guess it's possible. But I wanted to point out that stat. And last year, as I told you guys, Syracuse had 0 players drafted in the NFL. I believe that the Orange will have between 3 to 4 players drafted in 2025. And the last time that the Orange had 3 players drafted in one singular draft was in 2013, which I believe was also the last time they had a first-round pick, Justin Pugh. Also, Ryan Nassib was taken in that draft, and Shamarko Thomas was in that draft, giving the Orange 3 in 2013. The results on this week's Poll Friday, you guys, for the most part, agreed with me. There were about 250 votes this week. And a reminder, you can vote on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse and on YouTube, Locked On Syracuse community section. The poll is posted right there every Monday afternoon. So 3 to 4 players won the vote this week at about 65%. Then second and third place was very, very close. But 17% of you guys think that 1 to 2 players will be drafted. And 15% of you guys said 5 to 6 players drafted. So very close. And finally, coming in fourth place, 7+ players at 3%. For those 3%, I would love to hear your reasoning why you think 7 or more players are going to be drafted, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's maybe 5 to 6 is possible. I don't see 7+. Now, I will get into the players specifically in just a moment, okay? But before we get into all of that, I want to throw out this. There is a golden rule when it comes to the NFL and really all of professional sports on how they draft. The golden rule is this. They draft based on traits, not production. Repeat after me. They draft based on traits, not production. And the reason why I say this is because sometimes you'll look at an evaluation of a player and you'll think, man, that guy was really good in college. How come he's so low on all these pro draft boards, right? This guy was really good. How is he not a first round pick? They draft on traits, and it works the other way around too. My goodness, this player, I watched him in college. He wasn't very good. Why is he a day 1, day 2 NFL pick? They draft based on traits, not production, all right? So having said that, I believe there are 2 locks for Syracuse football to be drafted in 2025. Let's start off with Kyle McCord, all right? He's already said that he got the NFL feedback that he was looking for. If you recall, he was fighting to get that 5th year of eligibility. But Oddly enough, we don't know what the outcome would have been on that. We have no idea because before the NCAA gave their ruling on his appeal for the 5th year, he declared for the draft and he cited it was because it just made sense and he got positive feedback for the NFL. So he's got all the NFL traits that you would really want for at least an NFL prospect. I don't know exactly where he'll go in the NFL draft, but he's got the arm talent and he's got the ideal size for a pocket passer in the National Football League. The second player that's a lock to be drafted, in my opinion, is Oronde Gadsden, a 2-time All-American tight end. He profiles as a receiving tight end at the next level. He's going to be drafted, but he is one of those players, pretty much like everyone else, that will really benefit if he has a strong combine. If he puts up freaky 40-time numbers, a freaky vertical jump, I could easily see him going from a 4th round, 5th round pick to a 2nd or a 3rd round pick potentially. But regardless, the 2 locks for Syracuse football in 2025, these guys no doubt are going to be drafted barring medical reasons. That's why Sean Tucker wasn't drafted a couple years ago, medical reasons. Barring medical reasons, Kyle McCord and Oronde Gadsden will be drafted in 2025. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Those are the 2 absolute locks. Now, coming up, we'll talk about some other prospects from Syracuse in the 2025 NFL draft. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. This message is brought to you by Prizepicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. And for me, I'm all about the hot takes this season. And this week on Prizepicks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for more than 250 passing yards and Travis Kelce for more than 70 receiving yards. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prizepicks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. And folks, on this week's Poll Friday, I asked you guys the question, how many Syracuse players do you think will be drafted in the 2025 NFL draft? I believe that at least 3 to 4 players are going to be drafted. You guys also agreed with me. An overwhelming majority of you guys think it's going to be 3 to 4 players. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. We talked about how Kyle McCord and Oronde Gadsden are basically locks to be drafted in 2025. All right. Barring medical reasons, they will be drafted. This upcoming player that I'm going to talk about right now, I would say has a greater than 85% chance of being drafted. If we're being generous, let's call it a 90% chance of being drafted. All right. That's LeQuint Allen. LeQuint Allen is a do-it-all running back, all right? He was a do-it-all running back at Syracuse, but to me, right now at the NFL level, he profiles more as a receiving back. ESPN's Mel Kiper had high praise for LeQuint Allen. For those that don't know Mel Kiper, he is one of the top draft experts out there, year in and year out basis. He believes that a guy like LeQuint Allen, he could fly up the draft boards during this whole process. Excuse me. Now, let me tell you why I believe that is the case, because I agree with him. I believe he could potentially fly up the boards. I believe right now he's projected to be a day 3 pick. I don't know if he'll creep into day 2. I don't know if he will slide all the way to undrafted, but I can tell you how he can shoot up those boards, all right? So let's assume that LeQuint Allen's height and weight on Syracuse's website is accurate. Keep in mind, they're not always accurate, but let's just assume they're accurate, right? They listed them properly. LeQuint Allen is 6 foot, 201 pounds. That is a body mass index, BMI for short, of 27.3, which is not exactly ideal for a between the tackles, 3 down NFL running back. For those that don't know, who aren't necessarily plugged into BMI and all the fancy stuff when looking at running backs in the NFL, if you go look at the 1,000-yard rushers in the NFL in 2024, most of them, there are a few exceptions, but most of them entering the NFL had a body mass index of at least 30. One of the exceptions is Jahmyr Gibbs, who is just a freak athlete. I think we can all agree on the running back for the Detroit Lions. Just a freak athlete, right? LeQuint Allen, I love him. He ain't Jahmyr Gibbs, okay? That's like the exception. So the way that LeQuint Allen could simply fly up the boards, he can't change his height, but he can change his weight. If LeQuint Allen can put on, let's say, 10 to 15 more pounds between now and the NFL Combine, oh, he could definitely shoot up those draft boards, because then teams will figure that he has the size to do more than just be a capable receiving back at the NFL level. Get that? Basically, all I'm telling you is he's got to add on a little bit more weight. He adds on more weight, he will shoot up the NFL draft process. I have no doubt in my mind. All right. I would say 85 to 90% chance he's drafted, which would give Syracuse, in my opinion, 3 players. Now, the next couple of players here, I'll be honest, I don't know. I think they're 50-50. You can toss a coin. They're both on defense. You got Fadil Diggs and you got Alijah Clark. Now, they are both attending the East-West Shrine Bowl, which they can use to help or hurt their draft status, right? I think if either of those guys are drafted, it would be in day 3, meaning they would go between rounds 4 and 7. It's possible, but I would say probably if anything happens, it would be one of those players that are drafted. Then finally, here are some guys who we should mention, but I don't think they're going to be drafted. They could certainly go to an NFL training camp, no doubt in my mind, but I just don't think they're going to be drafted. Jackson Meeks, Savion Washington, Clarence Lewis, Marlowe Wax. Remember, the NFL drafts based on traits, not necessarily on production. All of these guys were all ACC, at least at some point in their college careers. A lot of these guys were all ACC this past season. Marlowe Wax, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if he made it because he missed so many games. He might have made it anyway. I might be wrong on that, but regardless, it's hard to make the NFL. These were all really good players. I just don't know at this very moment if they're going to get drafted. I would not bet on them. I wouldn't bet on it. Could be wrong. I would happily be wrong. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Jackson Meeks, Savion Washington, Clarence Lewis, and Marlowe Wax. And the big one that sticks out to me is Marlowe Wax, but I compare him almost to Michael Jones. That's who I compare him to. And Michael Jones, either he was a 7th round pick or he was not drafted at all. It's hard to make the NFL unless you're Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle, it's very easy to make the NFL for some reason and stick in the league. But for everyone else, it's challenging. So after all of that, 3 to 4 is my prediction. I think you're going to get Kyle McCord. You're going to get Oronde Gadsden. Most likely going to get LeQuint Allen. You might get one of Alijah Clark and Fadil Diggs. And then you have plenty of other players who, look, if they get drafted, great. If not, I would not be surprised. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. And finally, once again, the golden rule of the NFL. They draft based on traits, not on production, ladies and gentlemen. So that's it for this week's Poll Friday. How many Syracuse players will be drafted in the 2025 NFL Draft? It's very early, and we'll probably do this again in mid to late April, right around the draft season. But those are my initial thoughts, and they can certainly change between now and then. As far as what is coming up on the podcast, well, I'm going to see you all in just a couple of hours, because at 8 p.m. Eastern, Syracuse Football 2026 Recruiting News mini podcast. All right. So Syracuse, they added their 7th recruit recently in 2026. They also made a top 7 list for a defensive back, a 4-star defensive back. So that's what we're going to talk about at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. And then tomorrow, Syracuse basketball plays at 4 p.m. Eastern at home against Notre Dame. And there will be a full post-game reaction podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure to hit that like button. And folks, if you really liked it, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell 1 or 2 of your closest Syracuse Orange friends about the podcast, Locked On Syracuse. All right. Turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And everyone, take care.